Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. Introduce us from Group 4 will present about biological control. Before that, introduce from member of Group 4, namely Renni Elsyanda with study number 46, Rayswara Ayudya with study number 54, Alya Zulfa Ramadhania with study number 78, Wahyu Pradeka with study number 128, Romandon Wahyu P with study number 130, Sesilya Nur Oviarsya with study number 212, and the last one, Alexis Ratri with study number 214. Next.
Definition of biological control. H. S. Smith, 1919, first used the term biological control to describe the use of natural enemies to control insect pests. P. D. Budge, 1964, further refines the term biological control and distinguishes between natural control from biological control. Natural control is the process of regulating the population density of an organism that fluctuates between the lower and upper limits of the population over a certain period of time by the influence of abiotic or biotic environmental factors. Whereas biological control, from an ecological point of view, is the action of parasite or ooids, predator, and pathogen in maintaining the population density of other organisms at a lower average population than would be the case if these natural enemies were not present. Applied biological control can be further broken down into three main categories, namely, the first one is classical biological control, namely controlling a type of pest with the introduction of natural enemies. The second one is augmentation of natural enemies, namely effort to increase the population of natural enemy or their beneficial effect. And the last one is conservation of natural enemies, namely effort to preserve, protect, and maintain natural enemy population.
Management in biological control. There are three basic approaches used in biological control, namely number one is conservation and enhancement of natural enemies, conserving and enhancing natural enemies. This approach aims to conserve and increase the impact of existing natural enemies on the planted area. One way is to minimize the negative impact of using pesticides. Usually, natural enemies are more sensitive to pesticides than pests. Some measures to reduce the impact of using pesticides on natural enemies are spraying if needed, monitoring pest populations, avoiding contact between natural enemies and pesticides, selecting the right insecticides, testing the efficacy of pesticides, and calculating pesticide side effects.
Number 2, augmentation natural enemy population. This approach is carried out when the natural enemy population in nature is very low, because naturally the predator or parasitoid population fails the colonize to suppress the pest population. If the natural enemies in the planted area are not able to suppress the pest population, then mass reproduction of the natural enemies is carried out in the laboratory and then released into the field with the aim of accelerating their own population and maintaining the insect pest population. In this approach, there are two known methods, namely incollation and inundation. Next.
Number 3 is introduction of natural enemies. This approach is carried out if there are no natural enemy species that are able to effectively control the pest population. Then the introduction or importance of natural enemies into the pest affected area must be carried out. This approach is known as classical biological control. Natural enemies introduced into the environment are expected to restore balance in the new environment. The strategy of this approach is the method of mass production in large quantities so that natural enemies can be released to control insect pests. Next.
The role of biological control. According to Mangunhadiarjo and Mahrub, 1983 and Spoilena 2018, biological control is the main component of IPM, considering that the basis of IPM is ecological, economic, and social. Biological control maximizes the role of natural enemies in pest management efforts, where natural enemies are part of the chain in agroecosystem. Advantage of biological control. Biological control requires low cost over a long period of time. Biological control does not have a negative effect on human and environment, and biological control can suppress host population and spread more widely. Nonetheless, once the means of biological control are established, it is not necessary to repeat the control unless there is a disaster caused by climate shocks.
Disadvantages of biological control. There are three disadvantages of biological control. Number one is business speed. Biological control cannot be implemented in a short time and results cannot be expected in a relatively short time. Number two, speed of result. In contrast to chemical and mechanical control, it is not only the volume of work that can be calculated, but the results that can be calculated. Number three, need special handling. Initial research to find solution to pest problem with biological control requires a large number of technical staff and experts, and costs are high.
That's the presentation from group 4. If there are any questions, we are welcome. And if there are any mistake, we are apologize. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.